Now let's get going, folks, and we'll begin like we will every day here on Menzoid Mornings with something that's really grinding my gears. Time now for the Menzoid Monologue. Well, as those in Ontario are well aware, Queen's Park has been in a prorogued state since October. That means the House isn't sitting, bills are not being debated, and legislation isn't being passed. But wait a second, that's not entirely true that there are no laws being drafted and passed at Queen's Park. You see, even though the legislature is in hibernation mode, there's one individual who is busy making up new rules, and he was appointed, not elected, by the way, and his laws are passed without a scintilla of debate. That man's name is Ontario Provincial Police Superintendent Chris Wyatt, aka the Chief Firearms Officer. As Sun News Network's Chris Sims revealed earlier this week, Ontario's top gun cop quietly enacted a major change to the rules regarding restricted firearms, which is to say legal handgun owners must now carry an invitation at all times if they plan to move firearms between their homes and provincially approved shooting ranges. And get this, for those who don't comply with the edict, they could face a minimum 3-year sentence. By the way, this new rule is in addition to making target shooters move their guns unloaded, with trigger locks on firearms, with firearms securely placed in lock boxes in their vehicles, with permits. Indeed, in order to transfer a firearm to a shooting range, legal gun owners must carry 4 separate pieces of documentation already. Now, Tony Bernardo, spokesman for the Canadian Shooting Sports Association, is astounded by this new measure requiring a written invitation. Says Bernardo, the Chief Firearms Officer has created a new document that is not specified in the Firearms Act and has bestowed criminal arrest powers on that document. His job is to administer the law, not to create the law. That's what we supposedly elect politicians to do. Meanwhile, the Chief Firearms Officer said the decision was his to make and gun owners can comply with ease. Oh, really? Wyatt said he was mindful of the recent killings in Newtown, Connecticut when making the change, which is an astounding thing to say given that no amount of red tape was going to prevent a madman like Adam Lanza from carrying out his grotesque massacre. This isn't the first time, by the way, the Chief Firearms Officer has tried to go after law-abiding legal gun owners. When the federal gun registry was thankfully scrapped last year, the Chief Firearms Officer tried to implement a so-called backdoor provincial gun registry before he was told to back off by Ottawa. And it should be noted, this is the same office that has been known to change the rules in the bottom of the 9th inning. Case in point, the gun club in Orono, Ontario was recently visited by inspectors dispatched by the Chief Firearms Officer. And guess what, folks? The trap shooting range was deemed out of compliance because, on a whim, the office had changed the template for a shooting range, just like that. Thus, even though the Orono range has an immaculate safety record going back 53 years without an incident, suddenly it was deemed unsuitable. And just like that, there is no trap shooting at Orono any longer. And now just consider the new world gun order in Ontario. A law-abiding firearms owner on the way to a legal shooting club must not only have a letter of invitation, but he must surrender that invitation to a police officer on demand. Otherwise, he can be convicted of illegal transportation of firearms and face up to 3 years in jail. Look, maybe the Chief Firearms Officer despises guns or gun owners or gun culture, who knows? But the fact is, if the Chief Firearms Officer has a perverse hatred of firearms and law-abiding firearms owners, well, you know something? That's his problem. But why is this new legislation even needed? Has there been an incident that has occurred in which this sort of bureaucratic claptrap would have prevented? Are any of the gun-toting gangbangers cowering in fear due to Ontario's new layer of red tape? As Bernardo notes, this invitation regulation was a, quote, solution in search of a problem. However, enough is enough. The Canadian Shooting Sports Association, along with other groups, is going to court to fight the changes let's hope justice prevails. After all, how is it even possible in a democracy that an unelected bureaucrat can change the law unilaterally? Bottom line, you don't have to be a gun owner to realize that the egregious actions of the chief firearms officer are downright scary. And that's the Menzoid Monologue.